So tomorrow is National Signing Day, but yesterday was February 1st, and it was the day that winter workouts officially started for the guys that enrolled early and for the returners. For basically the first time now, the 2021 team was beginning their process as a group, getting started with Coach Marotti, and they got a lot of work to do here in the offseason to try to maximize what they can do in the fall coming up. I think there's an awful lot to consider about this time of year, because as a college football fan, you're a lot of times kind of turned off, right? It's February, the season's behind you. In the football world, you've got the Super Bowl coming on Sunday, but this is like the beginning of, especially for casual football fans, this is kind of the beginning of the time where, out of sight, out of mind, and they sort of circle back to it. But this is such a critical time for developing your program and making sure that you're at peak condition when you get out on the field. In a non-pandemic setting, that's a little easier. You've got some more predictability than what the Buckeyes had this past year. But things started yesterday, and it's a really important time of year for this program, specifically for the 15 guys that early enrolled, which, by the way, that's changed a lot in the last several years, right? Yeah. I mean, when Ohio State won the national championship in 2014, I'm pretty sure there were only a couple guys that early enrolled in that class. I think it was only 2. And now, this whole process has changed so dramatically in college football that it's kind of a no-brainer. If you don't early enroll, if you're able to and you choose not to, you're going to be behind. For these 15 kids that of the 21 that have signed an NLI, for them to be on campus, start class, and start going through this now for the next 6-7 months before things really get rolling with the fall, I mean, this is a huge time for them. I totally agree that the amount of which this period has changed and been re-emphasized is stark, in that I think it really kind of shows how much of like a business this college football industry is. I also really like it because I think this is where you figure out who can buy in. This is the coaching staff this is an opportunity where the coaching staff starts to really evaluate the intangibles on a psychological level, because this is not necessarily fun for these guys. I would guess that a lot of what Mick is putting them through is not just, the physical workouts and everything, but there's also a decent amount of psychological pressure. We know how much it's well documented and written about how much Mick employs a lot of the same type of psychological exercises that a lot of the military uses. He's a big, Bud's Navy SEALs fan, if you will, especially when it comes to, kind of the thought processes of training. So this is where they break guys. And if we're going to be really blunt about it, this is where, they start the breaking down process, and then the rebuilding comes a little bit later. And so this is crucial for any of the guys that maybe have some question marks about them coming in, as far as their ability to buy in. This is where you show the coaching staff you're able and capable and willing. You are being evaluated at Ohio State every single second of basically the entire year. I'm not so sure that this period of time is where I would guess the evaluation is even more focused and intense in this period, that they are making sure that they know who they can depend on, and this is where they figure that out. So it's absolutely crucial. Well, and it's not just important for the early enrolled guys, but especially considering what the last 12 months have looked like. Yeah. I think this is critical for the second-year players, for the Jackson Smith and Jigbas and the Julian Flemings of the world, guys that maybe did see the field, or even if they didn't, right? But guys that are going to be relied upon for sure in this upcoming season. There was nothing normal or regular at all about what these guys have been through the last 8 months. And so in some regards, the freshman class of last year, they didn't really know any different. I mean, obviously you understand, hey, look, I'm in the weight room with a mask on. I can't go anywhere without a mask on. I'm getting something shoved up my nose on a daily basis to figure out if I have COVID or not. I guess that normalized fairly quickly. But the idea that, for them, hopefully sooner than later, things are going to start to look a little bit, more normal with the pandemic subsiding a bit. Before the vaccines came out, I think there was a lot of wondering when that would actually happen. And I think now at least the fact that vaccines have begun distribution give people a feeling that, hey, at least we're on the back end of this. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There's something tangible that we're working toward. And the hope that the 2021 college football season could look a little bit more like what 2019 did. Maybe not totally, but certainly in some capacity. So for both the incoming freshman class and for the second-year guys, I think, February and March in particular are critically important for those guys to try and make sure they're ready to rock. And we've already talked about it, Brett, with the quarterback battle. You've got Kyle McCord that is on campus, and he is really not that far behind where C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller are, because C.J. and Jack had such an odd first year in the program. They hardly saw the field at all. In a lot of ways, it does feel like this is an open quarterback race. So
I wonder how much, and I don't know, quarterback I think is a little bit more nuanced come in this time period. I really wonder how much the evaluation process for Ohio State during this period of time moves guys up and down in the depth chart, because I would guess it happens pretty frequently in that, like, I did not like this guy's attitude today. Boom, we're dropping him. And now, or whatever. And I think that pressure that you're applying here to these guys is all the more multiplied given the outside stressors of COVID and the pandemic and everything. And so I think you have to be in some ways careful if you're Ohio State, Ryan Day, and the coaching staff of not maybe giving these guys too much, given all the crap that that we're all dealing with a little bit, especially when we're talking about young men here, 17, 18-year-old guys, 19-year-old men. That, like, you want to be able to give them just enough to be able to grow on that edge of uncomfortable, but not too much to then fall under the weight of expectation, crushed under the weight of expectation. With the quarterbacks, given all of that, I think with quarterback right now, it's really interesting. I would love to be in the room with how they evaluate this period of time with quarterbacks, because I don't know how you do it. I genuinely don't know how you do it, because it's not like, if you're a D lineman, it's like I picked up a sled and I threw it. It's like, oh, that's great. That's a good thing. You're not doing that if you're a quarterback.
Sure.
And so it's an intangible thing. It's meetings, it's tape. All of that evaluation is so fascinating, because it doesn't have a whole heck of a lot to do with throwing a football right now.
No, I think a lot of it is off the field. You're not in that quarterback room unless you're capable of playing quarterback at this level. I mean, I don't care where you're on the depth chart. You are not a quarterback on Ohio State's roster unless you have a base level of ability, of talent, the ability to play at the college level. The thing that separates you, frankly, I think, is a lot of what you just referenced. It's how you handle yourself in meeting rooms. It's what you do when you're with your teammates in the locker room and you don't think anybody else is watching, right? Just the kind of person that you are and the kind of leader that you are. Because being the quarterback at Ohio State's a big deal, man. It's a heck of a responsibility, and you got to be able to handle it. The Buckeyes have been pretty fortunate the last decade in particular with some extremely talented players that have done so, but maybe nobody more impressive just from a leadership perspective than JT Barrett. I know you could throw Justin Fields in there because of what he did this past year to help bring college football back. But JT Barrett was a three-time captain for a reason, and a guy that Ohio State fans have sort of reserved a special place in their hearts, I think, long-term for him. So I'm interested to see how that quarterback battle shakes out for sure.
Yeah, and it also, to me, it signals the end of, in some ways, it kind of this like crazy run of really like legacy Ohio State quarterbacks. It kind of signals the end of that era a little bit. And now we're into this era of Ryan Day recruiting. Urban Meyer certainly, has a, his influence is still obvious on this group, but I think it's this next batch of full build development QBs. And it's a new era, I think, in some ways. It's different from, the Dwayne Haskins development. It's different from the Joe Burrows, and then Fields coming in as a transfer. That I think is super exciting. And I think if you're an Ohio State football fan, you're eager to see how that looks. And so the next several weeks probably aren't going to give us a great look at how that, progression is moving along, but it doesn't mean it's any less interesting. It's certainly going to be fun to watch. I think it might be one of the more anticipated spring games in a long time.
Yeah.
Simply because I would actually put it, it's probably the most anticipated spring game since 2018, when we were curious to see who was going to win the job between Joe Burrow and Dwayne Haskins. And both guys came out and threw like 5 touchdowns apiece and looked entirely equal. And we were all like, we don't know anymore. I was like, oh, we're going to get the answer today. And like everyone walked out of the stadium that day going, yeah, I got nothing. It's flip a coin. And so in that regard, it's probably the most eagerly anticipated spring game quarterback-wise since that year.
Yeah, going to be a lot of fun.